So for the last few years I've been using the cooler on the left. It's a Deep Cool Gammax 400R, and you know what? It's not bad. It's got decent cooling performance, and well, it's just really ugly, especially considering that everything else in the case has got a red and black theme. It just sticks out with its shiny metal colour. Now I bought this back in 2018 and it's called a Ryzen 3 1200, a Ryzen 5 2600 and most recently a Ryzen 7 3800X. It doesn't owe me anything, and I'm not saying it's particularly bad, it's just time to let this cooler retire to my second PC and for me to find an upgrade. Now, as you can probably see in the background, I've already got an AORUS motherboard and Gigabyte GPU, so I thought it would be a good fit to try the AORUS ATC800 air cooler in there. I reckon it looks quite good, and with its push and pull configuration I'm sure the performance will exceed the little Deep Cool cooler. Most retailers sell this for around £80 or $110, so it is quite pricey for an air cooler, especially considering you can get a Noctua for less. But at least this cooler isn't brown. Here's how the ATC800 looks installed. Installation was pretty straightforward, although you have to tighten the cooler down with an Allen key, which was really fiddly. If there's one piece of advice I'd give you for the installation, it's to install outside of the case. I can't say how much of a ball ache it would be to try and tighten the mounting bolts inside the case. The cooler does look quite fancy and has addressable Rgb lighting on both the fans and the top. So for testing, I'm using the hottest chip I've got, a Ryzen 7 3800X. Aside from that, I'm using the Cooler Master MasterGel Pro V2 thermal paste, which has always been my go-to paste. And for this testing, I'm keeping everything at stock, including the GPU and RAM. The case is a Be Quiet 500DX fitted with Be Quiet Pure Wings fans throughout. So let's see how the AORUS compares. Here we are with sped up Cinebenching. This is sped up 500% because I'm sure you don't want to watch the CPU warm up in real time. Anyway, the AORUS ATC800 tops out at 81 degrees after a minute of full multi-core load. Even after an hour of this benchmark, the temperature didn't go any higher. There wasn't any throttling and the cooler coped well, although the noise reached a rather annoying 45 decibels. That's a bit too loud for my liking. This could probably be reduced with playing around with the fan curve or perhaps moving the case fans around a little bit, but the noise was just too irritating at stock levels, especially when installed in a Be Quiet case. You'd expect it to be lower. The Deep Cool in comparison was reaching 87 degrees. That's way too hot for my liking, but nowhere near as loud as this one. Still, the performance of the cooler was really good. You can't really talk about this cooler without mentioning the RGB aspect. Using the Gigabyte Rgb Fusion 2 software, it's pretty easy to choose almost any colour scheme you want. It's especially good if you've got other Gigabyte products to sync them up with. In my PC here, the case and the RAM are not synced, so that's something I'll have to look into later. It's actually pretty annoying needing different software for RAM. Anyway, the cooler, motherboard and GPU are all synced up using the software, and it looks pretty good I think. There's all the usual modes like static, pulse, color, cycle and gradient. You can also set each part of the cooler to display a different colour, or go the whole unicorn puke thing if that's what you're into. But right now, I've got my whole setup in a Be Quiet orange colour scheme, including my keyboard and Go XLR. So, in conclusion, would I recommend this cooler? Well, it's not the quietest, but it does a pretty good job at what it's supposed to do. I can't say I pushed it particularly hard, but when it's maxed out at stock settings, this cooler works great. Temperatures are easily kept well in control, and I personally think it looks pretty good with its RGB colours and its distinctive AORUS branding. I mean, it certainly looks better, a lot better than the old Deep Cool I was using. That said, it is a bit noisy, even in a Be Quiet case, and it could be tricky for a beginner to install. It's also on the pricey side. You could probably get better cooling performance for less with a Noctua. But if you're looking for a decent looking, decent performance cooler, the ATC800 is a pretty good choice, especially if you've got other Gigabyte components in your case. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any queries or questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.